Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Jake Bohall, co founder at Hive Digital. Jake is an instructor and also speaks at conferences. Jake, excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Jake, before we start off, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and the company for our viewers.
Great. I'm Jake Bohall. I've been at Hive Digital since 2008. Oddly enough, I started off as a client seeking marketing advice from another agency, and my future mentor, Russ Jones, and fell in love with the industry, fell in love with the constant changing environment, and then dove headlong into technical SEO and link strategies. And obviously at the time, SEO was quite a bit different than it is today. Now the agency, which I'm considered a co-founder at, we focus specifically on helping companies that we feel are making a difference in the world. This is part of a shift that we made in our model, I guess probably about like 4 or 5 years ago, in that, we don't want to work with any client that we can't go home and brag to our kids about. They're like, yes, that's a company that daddy helps make more apparent for everyone, and amplify their voice and their message. At this point, we're a small agency. We're 13 employees. And my team, which is the SEO team that I lead, is the largest in the company. We've got 6 employees, but then a paid search team, a team doing analytics, and then obviously like an executive and support team.
Right. Well, how has the lockdown been? I mean, personally for you, I know you are loving spending time with the 3 kids. I don't know how you do that and how you work. I have like 2 kids, and I mean, it's difficult. But how has it been for the team?
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to my wife, because she also has a full-time job and has somehow magically been able to help, with me and kind of like juggling the kids back and forth. The lockdowns, it's been interesting. So funny enough, when we transitioned the company in 2015, part of that involved moving to a remote work environment or a hybrid work environment. And at the time I had newborns. So I have 3 children, 14, 3, and 4 now. And I had a newborn. And so even though we went to remote, we had decided to keep a small office, so that anybody at the company could kind of rotate in and out of the office just based off of, what was happening and, what you might need to do. And so I tend to spend most of my time in the office. And so the lockdown, it was kind of like a hard shock at first, because not only am I having to work from home with 3 children, my wife is also full-time. And so it's just, kind of balancing that, I think, was the biggest challenge. But I think the blessing has come in the last, couple of weeks. I got to travel and continue work from home in Florida. My sister-in-law has, brought home a newborn baby girl.
Congratulations.
And so thank you very much. So it's been great. The team I think has taken it very well, also. So I think it's important to kind of give a shout out to them. Even though we had been work remote for the most part, everybody in lockdown who I know is going through the same struggles that I am personally, and just balancing a teacher and a daycare and a spouse and all those things at one time, while also supporting all of my clients. The team has done a really great job tackling all of that as well. And I think it's just finding that balance and knowing when to cut your time and say, like, today is over. It's time to go play with the kids.
Right. Well, that's the trickiest part. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're doing well in that. Um, but Jay, you're also an instructor at ASPE, where you lead the SEO Bootcamp training course. Could you tell us, highlights of that course?
Yeah, so I actually started teaching this course, I guess, about 7 or 8 years ago. And the goal is to, in a matter of like 3 days, to help people get a fundamental knowledge of SEO and some of the main areas that they should focus their attention and sort of communicating in their organization. So you can imagine impossible to cram 15 years of experience and so forth into 72 hours, which is not even, it's actually 24 hours, three days of an 8-hour class. And so, for me, like, the biggest thing is just making sure they understand like those pillars of SEO, that, the base fundamental is that a crawler can discover all of your content. The second is that, content is relevant to a query or the intent that you're trying to serve for the user. And then, up and ago, the top of the pillar was just links and authority. We've revisited that chart to add in another layer for user experience to take into consideration web vitals and so forth. So the goal of that course is just make sure that those fundamentals are understood and how they impact SEO and impact your rankings. And then to get kind of a taste for the things that you look for in each of those. Most importantly, I think, is if you're outsourcing to an agency or if you're managing a team, it's really good to be able to understand what people are talking about and to know what to look out for. And that's really the goal of that course. And then, that's the boot camp. And then if you need to dive in and actually getting, your hands dirty on things, and there's some extensions that we offer.
Right, right. Well, you have been in the industry for a long time. How do you see SEO has changed?
Wow. It's constantly changing. When I first started in SEO, you could rank a blank page with enough links. Number one for a competitive term. We had clients like in the mesothelioma space, credit card space, and a lot of really competitive spaces that we ranked, first page, and it was all link development. We maybe fixed a title tag and then built links, and I didn't care what the client's website looked like. It would be nice if I could get them to like add an H1 or something like that, but it didn't really matter. We had, I think there was one point that we had a client that for a very competitive utility service, like we were ranking, 3 and 4 different websites in the top 10, and it was working out great until they were an affiliate. And so we actually outranked the company that they were, the brand they were selling on their own brand terms. And that was all link building. It was, link farms, getting guest blog posts and directories and, all of the things that if you read about today, you shouldn't do. And so I think that is sort of fundamental to like that underlying transition has been that, one, as things become effective in a method to game the system for SEO, those things rapidly become ineffective. Because anytime you can game that system, Google's, it's a constant fight on, they don't want to be gamed. And as SEOs, like we want our clients to rank number one. So over the years, it's transitioned from, things that I could do that were more aggressive at manipulating the algorithm to and there's a sector of SEO that still does that. But, personally for me, and our agency, we've transitioned to more of like, how do we position the company so that SEO is part of like the fundamental, aspect of their digital presence. Right. So, like the underlying technical, the content strategies, looking at, search features and how to approach them. And ultimately, knowing that when Google says user first, like if you actually focus on that, right, it's going to be successful for you. Remembering that Google is also a user. Right. So, the crawler's experience and the user experience, you have to make sure you're optimizing for both of those. And so it's a lot more about being a legitimate business and, having, great, credible resources linking back to you. And ultimately, just doing the right, if you try to game it, you're going to constantly be in a roller coaster. If you want slow and steady growth, you'll win the race, and sometimes you'll complain that that guy who's building all of those blog links is outranking you, but it's short-lived.
Right. And also I think focusing on your USP. I mean, you can't be good at everything, but if you just focus on your USP, you'll surely actually build quality content for that particular service or product you're offering. And then, at the end of the day, it's about getting a client on board, whether it's a hook or a service. But if you actually focus on your core strengths and build quality content around there, I'm sure you will definitely see the results.
Yeah, you know what, it's interesting because we, for the longest time, we would have clients that would approach us and they would ask, can you write content for us? Can you write content? Like content's important. Can you write those articles? And we would tell them like, no, I don't know your business. Like, I know SEO, but you're supposed to be like the authority on this topic. Like,
right,
how am I supposed to know what a a flux capacitor is, or, whatever. Like, you're the expert. I can help guide you on, based off of search interest and that type of thing, what content you should be creating. But in terms of writing it from a position of, like, unless you want to teach me everything that you know, or that the experts in your industry are supposed to know or pay me to learn it, I'm not going to be able to write a better article than you. So there's some ways that we can work around it. Like, you can get college kids, to write some content if they're majoring in that space or something like that. But generally, there's a big push for our clients to create their own content, and then let us help them make sure that it's, friendly for the search engines.
Right. And I think that's the best, the right approach to do it, because I mean, from SEO point of view, you can do all the research, you can give them the guidelines, the outline, and maybe, once they write the content, maybe you can just, restructure it, or, maybe rectify the language. But at the end of the day, I mean, they have to speak their heart out, and they actually have to, say that message to the user that they want to. And I think they're the best ones to do it.
And if they're not, I speak at a lot of conferences, and I, have this sort of like running question that I ask, and it's like, everybody in the audience, raise your hand if you're the absolute best at whatever service or product that you're offering. And there's always, like, maybe one person that, raises their hand for a number of different reasons. And then I'm like, okay, that guy deserves to rank number one, maybe. The rest of you, like, go fix that first. Like, get to the point where you're confident that your product or your service is better than everybody else. And then you have a really good argument for why you should rank number one. But until you can do that, like, why? Like, why do you think you deserve to rank number one? Like, fix your business model. And so, like, it's funny because you ask, like, how has things changed over the years? We've spent a lot of time helping companies fix their model, right, as part of SEO, to try to meet that same thing. So, like, not only just teaching them, like, hey, you're supposed to be the expert, but also helping them, like, fix customer service issues and, all kinds of other things that just, create a bad experience, and they're getting bad reviews. And it's like, ranking's not going to fix that problem. It's just going to make a lot more people upset with you. So, like, we've also had to help fix business models as part of SEO, which is, not what I anticipated when I first started.
Right. So how does your SEO process look like? I mean, obviously not the details, but, I mean, how do you approach it?
Yeah, I think, I mentioned kind of like that pyramid, where, the kind of the first step is like an audit, where you're assessing, like, how can crawlers access your content? Do we have log files? Do we have analytics? Like, what behavior is happening on the site? And then, are we fully exposed to the search engines where we want to be? Are they getting the site quickly? Like, how are they accessing all of our content? So that's part of, like, a technical audit that we start with. The next tier is, like, the content audit. So looking at things like gaps with our content versus our competitors, topics that we should be writing about that we're not. Also looking at things that, for our competitors, has garnered lots of links or attention in social media, and then wondering why not us, and asking those kinds of questions for the client, and leading those content changes. The core Web Vitals is new. So, for us, we're developing that process at this point. We're using, like, the APIs for Lighthouse and so forth to develop benchmarks for each of those core Web Vital aspects, pulling, like, the Chrome user experience reports. And so we know across a sample of different types of templates on your site, what those benchmarks look like, so we can flag areas where, you seem to be struggling. And then doing something similar with competitors. Again, the competitor gap is helpful in SEO, and looking to see, which types of templates or pages or sites are outperforming us. So that establishes, a goal benchmark of something that we need to beat. And then we do the same thing with links. So we look at, the client's existing backlink profile, make sure that, we have nothing that's creating any serious issues or concern from, the toxicity that people talk about. And then look at competitor links to identify, gaps. So, do they have any great placements that we don't have, and why? What kind of strategies are they implementing that are successful and that kind of meet the guidelines of what we would want for our clients? And can we emulate it? And then some of the low-hanging fruit, like broken link building, unlinked brand mentions, and stuff like that, we can just get easy wins for the client. And so we develop a link strategy out of that. So, it's a combination of identifying technical issues, identifying content opportunities, identifying performance and user experience issues, and then looking for link opportunities, and then developing a unique sort of crafted strategy for each client on what we want to accomplish. And then I think really what sets our agency apart is at that point we work with the client to assign responsibility. So instead of just pitching a project, it's like, here's what you need. What can you do? Like, can I teach you to fish with this, or do I have to go fishing myself?
Right.
Because for us, like, we're a small team. Our goal isn't to implement, the nitty gritty of everybody's campaign. Like, our goal is to work with, in-house teams and other agencies to educate them, to get them over the hump and that type of thing, so that they can do for themselves. Because, this is all going to change at some point, and we have to focus our energy on identifying what's important and how to develop strategies for people to implement.
Right, right. Well, I totally agree. I mean, analyzing the competition, even for those content gaps or, links is always, I mean, always I have seen is the best, or the first thing to look at, and it does give results. We also, recently tested another thing. I mean, after, the core web vitals, EAT, I mean, I think now, Google is moving more towards presenting the best content in the best way possible. uh, so what we, I mean, like with our other partner agencies, uh, we also realize that what we do is, I mean, if the client obviously wants to invest time, we also do an survey where we ask the clients, I mean our clients to kind of review the various pages of the website and kind of give us an idea of what they think, I mean, the website is providing. And then we kind of match that with the core values and the USPs, and try to, that kind of gives that human angle, which maybe
Mm-hmm.
the tools do not. And that, that actually has helped us a lot with our campaigns.
Yeah, I think, Will Reynolds at Sear Interactive, very much speaks about how that's an approach that they take at Sear. And I agree completely. One of the things that we try to do, and that's kind of where I mentioned that a lot of times in SEO, like, we end up like fixing clients' business models, is, because it's, our goal is to rank the site better, right? Like, that's when people write a check to us, like, they're thinking, I'm going to write this check, my rankings are going to go up. And then they assume that we live in a silo. And so we start talking about things like, the conversion experience, or just the experience of the site itself, and how that plays a role. And, suddenly, we're out of scope on the project, and we're trying to tell them how to run their company. But it's very true that, you get that feedback from, real users, and you can identify like really simple things like, oh, if we only had, like, I had a client that sells just widgets. They sell widgets, and they actually make them. And, one of the first, sort of challenges for them was they just had a page and like, here's all of our widgets. And it was a fairly technical space. And so, we quickly were able to determine that users typically land on their site not knowing what kind of widget that they want. And so for us, it was like, hey, we need to build a tool like
Right.
on our homepage. And this was a link building strategy, this was content strategy, and this is a user experience strategy, like all rolled into one. Whereas like we need to build, a really simple, like basically a quiz that, results in, here are the widgets for you. So like what application are you using it for? What type of material, are you using it with, and that type of thing. So they can present the user with the right products, and something that simple like changes the experience for a user on the site, but it makes it so beneficial that now other people link back to the site when they're like, hey, like, I don't know what kind of widget I want. It's like, oh, well, if you check out widget.com, they've got a tool that helps you figure that out. And so like I think that doing those types of like real live reviews and screen recordings and things like that can really help you understand what it is that your customers are trying to accomplish and where their struggles are. Because if you have an easier to use site, you're going to build links more quickly. You're going to have buzz and social media, and like those things happen, versus when it's a miserable experience and people just leave and forget about you.
Right,
So.
right. How important, do you consider internal links in your SEO strategy?
Their internal links serve two purposes, right? So the first is like just navigation for both users and crawlers so that they can discover all of your other content. And the other is relevance, right? So, we have anchor text on internal links that gives some additional context and weighting to the meaning of those destination pages. So you can imagine, if you had a page, obviously like if the anchor text is privacy policy and the destination page is privacy policy, it strengthens the signal that is most definitely what that page is about. So having, appropriate internal anchor text, having a higher volume of links to those pages that are more important for your site, creates like a natural tree of, relevance hierarchy within the site. So, one of the reasons why breadcrumbs, as simple as it sounds, like one of the reasons why breadcrumbs are such an effective internal linking strategy is because every single product links to a parent and links to a parent. And so like the more product that a particular category has, the more internal links that category receives. And as a result, and the hierarchy of the site, that category seems to be more important naturally. As opposed to, if you just have navigation links and then like, the occasional here and there, then every page on the site is going to have the same number of links and look to be equally important. And that's just not reality. Every business has products that they care more about. We had a strategy that we implemented many years ago using at the time we were scraping Google and rankings data to develop this. Now you can pull the data out of Search Console using the API. So, effectively what we do is we look for pages and keyword combinations in which you rank on the top of page 2. So ranking positions 11 or 12. And then we, build out, this classic, recent searches widget or popular products widget or something like that, because you can segment by page type, once you get the data back.
Right.
And then on the home page or on other pages, we create this block for, popular products. And, for all of the items that we're ranking at the top of page 2, with particular, we now have an anchor text because we know what the query was for impression in Search Console. We know the destination. So we use that, and if it's a product, then we're still putting like the product image and so forth. But just for the actual anchor text, we're using the query that was getting the impressions in Search Console. And this is second page poaching. And by simply implementing this widget, we're able to see a number, and this is just implementing a widget. Like That's it. It's automated. It now sustains itself because it's, refreshes data on a regular basis.
Right.
Those things that were ranking in position 11 and 12 before simply move to like positions 9 and 10. I mean, you're not going to get to number 1 with this, but you're going to see enough of a shift. You're going to get, a greater impression share and typically greater clicks. You'd be surprised, like sometimes position 11 oddly gets, more clicks. It's getting a little more challenging now because we have like some results pages with 7 results, and that type of thing. But the concept itself, both fundamentally works at improving your rankings by a few positions, but it really underscores to your question, how important internal links are. Because if I can simply add a few more internal links to my homepage, and then like see those destinations improve in their rankings, I think that, it's irrefutable evidence that having additional internal links with, optimized anchor text certainly makes a difference in your rankings.
Right. Do you like personally consider a limit to the number of internal links like a page should have?
It's kind of a user experience discussion. So, for us, like, I don't think there are any hard absolutes in SEO for anything, whether it's, keyword count, content, words on a page, how many characters in your title, like those sorts of things. It's like, what works best for the user. So when we're doing this, I mean, typically, we're looking at between 5 and 10, that we're going to place like on the homepage in one of these little blocks. There are things that we do to get more creative. So for example, we'll look at on a category page, we'll run this API, but only because we have, like, for example, most e-com sites, like you nest the products URL under the category.
Right.
So we would run the same script but only look at pages within like that particular product category. So you can imagine if you land, you know, at the top of category A, like if you're on the top of the tree on the category A page, you know, we're showing popular products in category A in a widget using the same exact method, but only, you know, siloed only to category A items. And so, you know, you can implement that at scale across, you know, a site with millions and millions of products. And you end up with like, you know, this like subtle uplift that really can make a big difference to a client's bottom line.
Right, right. When you're planning a content of a particular page, I mean, is there a particular strategy or a process that you follow?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because it's, you know, a lot of SEOs like will go through some very elaborate you know, methods for kind of building this out. For us, we try to keep it fairly simple. So, you know, for whatever topic or intent the page is supposed to meet, which is the goal number one is, you know, why do we need this page? Like, what is the purpose of this page? And then we use a combination of tools like Answer the Public, Market Muse, to look with Answer the Public. It's like what are the questions that people would ask about this? And we literally go like we did in grammar school, where you create an outline with each of the questions. So, you know, for topic A, we've got the who, what, why, when, where, sort of breakdown. It's like we need to answer all of these, and then you organize it, you know, in a way that follows the funnel path that you want for your users. And then, you know, it's a matter of like creating imagery. So like, we want to see mixed media on every page if possible. You know, we want to have, you know, text, we want to have bullet points, we want to have video, we want to have images. We want to have some sort of like tool or interactive, and then obviously our call to action. You know, so like all of those things, and further navigation, either, you know, to give the user the option to go higher up the funnel or to lower up the funnel, or lower down the funnel. You know, so they can sort of self-evaluate, like, you know, is this the right content for me? Do I want to learn more about it, or do I want to, you know, like figure out what, you know, what this is, what we're even talking about? Maybe the content's too technical. You know, so when we're planning that, you know, the outline is, you know, following like the buyer's journey, and then leveraging the, you know, all of the questions and trying to answer all of the questions that we can find. Like, you know, I mentioned Answer the Public, Market Muse, and then obviously Google's search result itself, right? So what page do we want to rank, or what keyword do we want to rank for? We will go and look at the search result, and then if we see like there's a knowledge box, there's a map, there's videos, there's images, you know, these are the people also ask questions that are showing up, then it tells us very clearly that Google has identified and invested in the idea that people searching for that particular term have this array of intent. Like some of them want to watch videos, some of them want to go to a brick and mortar. And so if we wish to rank number one for that result, it's important that we convey to Google, like, we also meet all of those intents. Like, so like, we're not just one little facet of this query. Like, somebody lands on our page, like, we'll help them, you know, meet all of their intents one way or another. So whether it's, in this case, like, hey, places nearby suddenly appears on our page, or like our location, maybe like we just need to make sure we have an address and a map embedded on the page. You know, if there's videos, then we have a video embedded on our page. We address some of those same questions in like a list or an FAQ section. You know, like those are the things that we have found that are important when building out a new page for a client, or evaluating an existing page that we want to rank better.
I think that will also help in ranking for rich answers. I mean, you know, if you follow that approach.
Absolutely.
What about you know, refreshing an old page versus creating a new one?
I am firmly of the opinion that there is way too much content created on the web. You know, like there's, you know, you asked earlier about what's different between old SEO and new SEO. Years ago, you know, we would literally, there's this tool, I think they changed the name of it, but it was keywordshitter.io. And you would put in like a keyword that you wanted, and it would immediately just spit out like 1,000 variations, like phrase match variations of that particular term. And then we would go out and we could auto spend, you know, those 1,000 pages, which is like that keyword as a title, and, you know, a couple of, you know, auto-generated paragraphs of text to go with it. And those would rank. And so I've spent a lot of time with clients consolidating pages not just because of strategies like that, but just because, we have like keyword cannibalization. Google doesn't show 4 and 5 results for a single site anymore, unless it's like a brand query
Right.
specifically. So some of the benefit that we had from like sprawling on keywords is no longer effective. And so anytime I have a client who wants to create a page, we've got a pretty strict policy that first we look to see if there's any particular content that we have currently that's going to meet or touch on that particular topic. And that's like this internal inventory that we do. MarketMuse is great for this because they inventory all of the content for your site. So you can type in a keyword or a topic, and then they show you like, here are all the pages that you have on your site related to that topic, and kind of the scoring for it. And then you can identify like, instead of creating a new page, can we improve an existing asset? It already has age, it already has authority and links and so forth. If I can improve this page to meet this new intent, and there's enough overlap, then this page stands a higher chance of ranking for multiple things than if I create another highly related page that's just trying to serve a slightly different intent. That exercise is also great because it helps you go ahead and identify, like from a funnel perspective, what is related content, or what are the related pieces that I should be both linking to from this article. So like my own content or landing pages that I should be linking out to from the new content I'm creating, and a reminder to go back and update those other pieces of content to link to the new page that I'm creating. So to answer the question, I always want to refresh an old page every chance I get. We tell clients to diary every time you create a page, to go ahead and set a date that no matter what, like on this date, I'm going to revisit this page, and then make a decision on whether or not it's obsolete, it needs to be deleted and redirected, or if it's something that we should just, refresh or leave as is.
That's a
And
good
so,
tip.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, the content, there's actually a really great blog post that John Gibbings, who heads our content strategy at Hive, wrote on our blog. I think it's called the content life cycle or something like that. But it kind of goes through that exact process.
Right, right. Well, talking about content and link building, we all know that link building is very important. So I would like to know your thoughts on a few aspects which kind of might seem very simple, but still a lot of SEOs have difficult time in taking that decision, either this or that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Questions like branded anchor text versus money keyword anchors. How do you plan the distribution?
It's a great question. So I think we typically don't plan the distribution. We sort of set some rails on, if we see that we are exceeding certain boundaries, we pull back or adjust strategies. So I think it's best to kind of back up when we do an initial link audit for a client. Depending on their budgets, we can do more in-depth link audits or more high level. For those that we do the more in-depth link audits, we evaluate competitors' backlink profiles to
Mhm.
look at both the dispersion of domain authority as it flows through their link, like their pages. So like, their homepage normally has more domain authority. And as you go long tail through the site, the curve, it generally looks like this. And the same path. We also look at all of the primary landing pages and look at the branded versus unbranded anchor text distributions. Again, not to establish this is our target goal, but to get an understanding of what is considered an acceptable pattern for the particular space. You can imagine, in like the credit card or mesothelioma space, if you look at the branded versus unbranded anchor text distribution, you'll see it is skewed much higher in favor of money keywords. As you get into more like informational type queries and less, overtly commercial queries, then you start to see that tails off to be a lot more or higher percentage of branded anchor text than unbranded. You can obviously also take a look at, we have a tool that we built, I think it's on the removeem.com website, that pulls your backlink profile from Moz and then evaluates both the raw anchor text for that domain, like the anchor text of each different like keyword phrase itself, and also looks at the domain authority passed by, or domain Moz rank passed per anchor text.
Okay.
Because there's also, kind of like this, it's not just the volume of links. When you're looking at it, you might also notice that for sites that are obviously manipulating their profile, there's a much higher amount of Moz rank passed on
Right.
links with that particular anchor text than there are for sites that have a more natural backlink profile. So when we're wanting to start a link building campaign, we want to look at that for each of our competitors and see like what are those thresholds. Like the sites that are ranking in the top 5, their thresholds sort of establish like that upper limit of like we would never want to cross that threshold.
Right.
What we don't know, and I think this is where that sort of approach to SEO has really started to shift for a lot of agencies, is we don't know what percentage of those backlinks have been disavowed,
Yeah.
or that Google has decided not to give any credit for just naturally. And so you might see, and we've ran into this a number of times, you might see like sites that have like this incredibly high distribution of links towards, money keywords, and they're ranking, and then there's no way that was acceptable. And so like they've obviously gone through the process of having a penalty, attempting to clean up, disavowing a bunch of domains. And so like that data ends up a bit skewed. So when I answered your question initially, I said, we try not to set any, hard boundaries for like a number or percentage. We try to just set up rails and say like, we want to get as natural an anchor text profile as possible. So we'll work, for example, with a PR agency. We hope our clients have a PR firm. We can help coordinate with one before we do any type of like money keyword link building, so that we've got a very well established base of brand. We want Google to understand that the most important part about this business is who they are and
Right.
not what they offer, because everybody, anybody can sell widgets, but not anybody can be, Acme Widget Corp. And if Acme Widget Corp is the one that gets all of the authority, then Google will look to say, like, what is it about this company that makes them so successful? And then they'll rely more heavily on, the content, the relevance they find in the content they're discovering, to weigh that site for a particular keyword phrase than the anchor text of the backlinks that were coming. So I think, long story short, for most every company, we want to establish as natural a backlink profile as possible, focusing on, brand and so forth, and then reserve any type of, attempt to manipulate the backlink profile in a more sniping fashion. So, we need to rank for this particular keyword. We're capping out at position 3 or 4, with our technical is perfect, our onsite is perfect. And we just can't break this hump. We can see that the competitors are taking this approach to link building, in this case, like, actively manipulating the profile. Then we'll pursue, maybe some more aggressive link building strategies. But, outside of that, like we want the brand and the experience to carry the link. And that sounds cheesy. Like, as somebody who, 10, 12 years ago, like, would take $100,000 budget from a client and spend $99,000 on links.
Right.
Just to say, like, today, like, that's not the way that I would approach it. Like I 10 years ago, I would have been kicking myself. But today it's not worth it. And I think a lot of that's because the clientele that we work with tends to care more about their brand and longevity in search results. That's not to say that you shouldn't, consider spinning up a secondary website that, targets particular keywords or audience, for a lead gen purpose, and, have your way with it. But know that, it should be for science, and that it comes with great risk. And
Right.
so as long as you're prepared for that, then, hammering links is, that's your prerogative. Go for it.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's very important to, be natural as well. So, I mean, I come across clients, who say that, hey, we want to build, let's say, 50 links a month, and, every link has to be a particular amount of DA and so much traffic. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And, they're like, but why? And I'm like, I have to make sure, based on your current link profile and your site, I mean, even if you are kind of manipulating links, I mean, the DA distribution has to look natural. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there are still people who are getting away with building like, high authority links on money keywords and, getting away with it. But, that's
There's a
not.
place. There's definitely a place for that, and I'm certainly not going to sit here and pretend like that's not something that I look at on a daily basis and make every effort I can to emulate it in a way that I feel is defensible for my clients. You mentioned like the client asking for a specific DA. Like it's funny. I had um, I had a very large client that I was working with. We spent many years building links for them. And then at some point, like, we had sort of a shift in some strategies at the company, and this was about 5 years ago or so. And then one of the reports I gave the client, like I showed them, like your domain authority graph. Like if I just looked at the dispersion of domain, it's supposed to start here. Like, you have a lot of just like low authority links, and then, like your high authority links, like there's just a lower volume, and like that's just normal. Like that's just what happens in the wild. And for them, like they had their curve looked more like this. So they had like an
Oh,
inverted V where like, from between DA0 and 20, like they had a very low number, and like a DA20 is where like their natural curve started. Because, they ran several year link campaign where they were like, hey, we don't want any link less than a DA20. So, it stands out. So when we're doing link building for a client, like, we no longer even talk about, domain authority or Moz rank or that type of thing. And, no offense to Moz. There's lots of other metrics out there too, but that's the one everybody tends to use.
right.
But, we don't really get into that because, our goal is, we want to get highly relevant links, links ideally that are going to get trafficked by real people. Like the actual, flow of users through a link, is a much better metric of the value of a link, whether or not the person I'm purchasing a link from has done a lot of link building to their page in the past as well. So sort of abolishes the pyramid scheme of link building that is continued to develop over the last 10 years, and really places it at its most important metric, which is do we get traffic through this page? Can we convert users? I.e., is relevant to the audience truly? And that's where like display campaigns are a fantastic method for identifying those. Like you run a display campaign and ads, and you get let Google place your ads wherever they think it's topically relevant, and then you can measure which sites are actually generating traffic and leads through to your website, and then you can go back and approach them and say like, hey, like like this is you have a great article on your site talking about this, like I would like to advertise directly, or can I partner with you for a guest post, or can you just outtakes from the interview or something like that embed on your page. And that's a much more effective strategy because you're prospecting based off of proven value, and that traffic and that link is not only relevant, but it's probably going to put money in your pocket in addition to any contribution for link growth.
Right, right. What about press releases? Do you consider press releases as a great way to build SEO?
No, I do not. I think press releases are, it's kind of funny at this point. Like if you are just submitting to like the PR web sort of thing, you're basically just spamming the web. And there's no real benefit to that. If you can leverage, like if you've got a really great piece of, change in your business, or like you're launching a new product or something that's actually press-worthy, and you legitimately think that by issuing this press release, a reporter might see it and want to interview you, then I think you've got a really good reason to write a press release. A lot of people think that sending out press releases is, this really great way to build links, and they forget about this fundamental concept that, once you have a link from a domain, like you've pretty much exhausted your benefit from that domain. So like if you do one great press release and it gets exposure, you now have a link from all of these different outlets. Submitting a second press release and getting yet another link from that same site is not going to build you any additional authority, nothing measurable beyond what you already have. And then most of those destination sites are going to be devalued by Google at this point anyway, because they've been spammed so heavily in the past. So it's one of those where, you have to ask yourself the question, is there a legitimate business case for doing this press release? Is this an actual PR effort? If the first reason you do any type of outreach is for an SEO reason, then you're probably doing your link building wrong. I believe there's a saying, that, great link building is indistinguishable from great marketing. And that's because, and that was Link Moses who said that. It's like anytime you are trying to obtain a link or create a campaign for link building, there should be a way to defend this to the search engines should it ever come back to you. Like, this was actually a real marketing campaign. But most importantly, it should actually be a real marketing campaign. Like, links are like the secondary byproduct. And so when we're approaching link building for clients, it's always about trying to find a strategy that's going to be effective for them and growing their business and their brand and the exposure for whatever product they have. And that part of the sales pitch is, we will get links from this. So it starts with, here's a great piece of content, or here's a great idea that's going to convert people and make you look good. And by looking good, we're going to get reviews, we're going to get social buzz, we're going to get links, and that type of thing. And that's a real shift in how we've approached SEO as an agency as well.
Right. How to recover from a penalty?
Beg for mercy.
Good one.
It's funny. We built Remove 'em, which was I think either the first or second sort of link cleanup tool in the marketplace. Which was, for us, there was a moral conflict because we had spent 10 years building links, and then we built a tool to remove them. We actually built a tool internally for us before releasing to the public. It was just an ocean button inside of our link prospecting software. So we had built this like really cool platform for link building. And if we felt like, essentially if we got an email from that cut saying like, hey, is this your client? We would immediately go hit that button, and then it would blast everyone we had acquired a link from and ask them to please take it down and that we would pay them to do so. And then when Penguin hit, we were like, everybody needs one of those buttons. And so we built Penguin, or we built Remove 'em, so that everybody, obviously not our clients, because we had a solution for them already and we didn't charge them for it. But we built Remove 'em so that people could identify the links that were likely causing them harm, and then more easily get the contact information, have templates for emailing and so forth. So if you get a penalty, step one is generally not to fake a recovery effort, not to fake anything really. Like if you were link building and you got caught, like they know. You stand out. Your link graph, it looks like this, or something obvious has happened. They've got a copy of emails. Or just algorithmically you're toast, and unless you actually fix the problem, algorithmically you're going to continue to get hit by the same problem. So for us, when we're trying to help a client recover, it's a very arduous process of evaluating all the backlinks and trying to isolate those that we feel are most likely under scrutiny because they look like they were placed by an SEO. And then, immediately we throw those into a disavow, we submit the disavow, and then we go out and start doing cleanup efforts. So asking for those links to be removed. We send in, go ahead and file a reconsideration request stating that hey, we've evaluated our backlink profile. If we know what went wrong, so we hired, XYZ agency, or we had a rogue employee, or what we were doing, but we didn't realize the consequences. That's, that is a legitimate reason. I mean, small businesses don't, read the guidelines for Google. We don't even read our EULAs, for our phones. So it is defensible for a customer to in their reconsideration request to say we didn't realize this was an issue. Now that this has happened and our business is suffering, we're aware, we're taking all steps. We've hired, XYZ company for cleanup. They've evaluated all these links. They've disavowed them because we don't want the credit for them. We understand you want to see us, cleaning those up. So we've also, begun this outreach campaign that we're, documenting the best we can. generally Google's going to come back and say no. They're just going to say like, yeah, sorry. And so, that's where you can then come back to them and show like, here's, all of our efforts. The hardest challenge, I think, is that no matter, if you're pulling data from Majestic, Moz, Ahrefs, and so forth, Google will always come back with some new links as an example of like, these look manipulated that like we've never seen before. Like they aren't reported in Search Console. They're not reported anywhere. And it's just, like, what just happened? And so you end up playing this game of whack-a-mole with, some edge case that, somebody at Google is looking at. And that's where the begging for mercy really comes into play. And it's just, I'm doing the best that I can, and then knowing when to cut your losses. And, depending on how valuable this is for you as a business, and sometimes it's time to just move on, start a company.
Right, right. What is the biggest challenge you have come across during your SEO career?
This is a very specific challenge that I had. Actually, I was at PubCon in Austin. I presented on this. I had a client that had user-generated content. And they, basically there was an art site, and when a user uploaded art, they could tag it however they wanted. And so this client had ended up with 5 million tags on their site. So all 5 million of these tag pages were being indexed and crawled, and a large portion of them was actually generating, the majority of the revenue. And so I had to figure out how to kill a lot of those tag pages without killing his revenue model. Right. And some of these were like random. Like, so for example, we'd have like ships, sailing ships, ships sailing, ship sailing, like all these various ship hyphen sailing, and all these types of things. And my mentor, Russ Jones, he was at Moz at the time. I reached out to him for help on this. J.R. Oakes, at the time was Adapt Partners, now it's Locomotive Agency. I reached out to him for help because we had to find a way to narrow this down. And I had tried everything from looking at assigning paid search value to each of these keywords to identify those that had like commercial value and eliminating those that did not. Using things like mod spell as a way to like just check for spelling errors and correct them. We did Porter stemming, lemmatization to try to identify like the root for each of these, to map them, because it wasn't just a matter of deleting. We also had to like delete them, redirect them, update the database, and all this sort of stuff. We ended up finding a fairly clever solution. And we even had like different NLP models. Like JR did this really amazing work with vector mapping to try to create, like associations to see which words were most closely related, so we could do clustering around those particular topics. And after spending months and months of all of these different types of data analysis to try to resolve it, we just had sort of like one of those like drinking a beer epiphany moments where it was like, hey, every single one, like, and actually just to back up, one of the other big challenges was pop culture items. So like, for example, keyboard cat in the dictionary, it's not a thing. So like we had a lot of like those sorts of things for pop culture references. And so we were having this like drinking a beer moment and realized like, hey, all of the topics that we care about are going to be in Wikipedia, right? Like in some form or fashion. And Wikipedia creates a standardization with Wikidata on, every one of the topics that they have an article about. And even more importantly, if you attempt to browse to a URL on Wikipedia with a misspelling or a variant, they will automatically redirect you to the final destination. So I won't go into the details of how we may or may not have violated Wikipedia's terms of service, because we didn't. We downloaded it. But ultimately we leveraged Wikipedia to identify all of the commonalities in terms and to basically clean up this 5 million tag database to about 500,000 like legitimate tags. And so it was so incredibly fun. I had to rely on several colleagues for ideas as we just beat our heads against the wall, trying everything we could to solve what should have been or what seemed to be like a fairly simple, like, hey, we just have a bunch of like rogue tags. How do we consolidate these? And aside from like manually sifting through them, which is impossible at the budgets we were getting paid, we had to find a way to automate it. And so, I was really grateful for them. There's actually an article on Moz. It's called Tackling Tag Sprawl that I ended up writing with Russ and JR to talk about exactly how we went through this process. But I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges, at least with the client. We've had certainly agency challenges with scaling and hiring and chasing money and all those sorts of things that have also been really big challenges. But I think with the client, that has definitely been one of our biggest challenge cases.
Well, Jake, thank you so much, for your time. It has been fun speaking to you. I know we are short on time, but definitely I'll try catching up with you again soon.
Great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you having me here.
Same here, man. Same here.
Great. Take care.